All right, and we are live. Good morning, everybody. I'm joined here by AJ Steers on our engineering side. AJ, how are you this morning?
Doing great. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's a little early. The coffee's still kicking in, but we have a full agenda, so we're going to kick in here. This is the second in our series of Airbyte AI topics. This one is going to be a hot one. We're talking about MCP and MCP services, building data pipelines, and bringing customer context into your app. We've got a ton of stuff to go into, so I'm just going to kind of kick into the flow, and then we'll have a great conversation on the way through. Is the easiest way to think about it. So I've already done the introductions with AJ and myself. I run developer relations here at Airbyte. AJ, as I mentioned, is on the engineering team. Both of us have been working on MCP services for our customers for some time now, and we wanted to share some of the latest information. So we're going to break it down into three areas. We're going to try and get 3 demos in. We're going to live on the edge, make sure that all of that is good. But we're going to talk just a little high level about MCP if you haven't heard about it before, and the different ways that we're seeing MCP evolve and work in the workspace, specifically around customer context and data. There's a little differences and nuances in the way that we've seen it. And then, like I said, we're going to live on the edge and try and do a little bit of code. So if you haven't seen MCP before, MCP itself stands for Model Context Protocol. What that means is it's an open standard that was introduced by Anthropic that is an open standard way to connect to models with real-world tools. What's important about all of this is that you can think of it as kind of a universal plugin for any tools. It makes it really easy for you as a company or a developer to expose your tools and services into any app that, say, a developer might use. Now, that's really important because what it means is that it makes it possible for you to do some really kind of crazy, interesting things. And what we've seen is it's been adopted really widely by a lot of the big AI tool providers. People like Cursor, Klein, OpenAI, obviously, Postman, etc. All of these provide really interesting tools and services. But what we've seen on the way through is there's a different modes on the way that people use MCP. From an Airbyte perspective, we've started to notice that they fall into 2 primary categories. There's this notion of context-aware MCP providers. So these are somewhere like Airbyte as a good example, where an MCP is hosted by the service provider to share customer data to an LLM or an agent or an agentic workflow. So that is effectively providing customer context for an app developer that is actually building. On the other side, what we're seeing is that, let me just shift my screen 1 second here.
Uh, Quentin, I think it might be sharing my screen as of
I
now.
just noticed that, so I
Okay.
apologize for that. I'm going to flip back. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Okay, so now we should be able to see my screen. Sorry about that one, but hopefully you get the gist here. What we're seeing here is a shift between 2 different types of MCP models. One is that context aware, where it's covering and sharing customer data on behalf of somebody. So imagine that you're an app developer and you want to connect your customer data, allow them to connect in your service, and then share that into an LLM to do some sort of analysis or processing. On the other side, we're seeing the rise of a ton of code-aware tools and MCP services that make you as a developer easier. We're going to cover both of these on the way through, but what I wanted to jump into first is just to give you an idea and show you what it means when we talk about customer-aware apps and those context-aware MCP services. First of all, what we're noticing is that these services, as I mentioned, start to offer customer data and context directly to an LLM. Shopify is a really good example. They have this thing called the Shopify Storefront MCP, and effectively what it does is it allows and creates services for you as a shop owner on Shopify to give a feature to your customer that a shopper can say, ask for products about browsing, ask your agent to search the store's catalog or manage your chart, any of those things on behalf of you. So you're taking that customer data, so in that instance, orders and catalogs and products, and then passing it over to an LLM to do some sort of analysis. Now, I'm super excited today to announce and share with you the Airbyte embedded MCP that does something very similar using Airbyte data and context. So what Airbyte MCP actually does is it provides the ability for you as an app developer to very quickly and easily onboard your customers via Airbyte embedded. This was the topic of the last webinar that we did. So if you haven't seen that one, definitely check it out. The recording is online. But once you've onboarded a customer, they can create a source using any of our 600 plus sources to connect data. And then on behalf of your customer, you can use the embedded MCP to fetch data on a sort of a proxy request. So that may be data from that source, or you may do a file fetch from, say, something like Google Drive or anything like that. And the great thing is, because it's an MCP, it's available within all the tools or any of the tools that you or your customer want to use. So just to make it a little bit easier, why don't we have a look at a quick demo here? It's way more interesting than slides. Okay, so I'm inside Claude Desktop here. And what I want to do is, let's just say I want to create a, here we go, I'm just going to paste in a copy here. If my code would paste in. Okay, I'm going to use I'm just going to copy this prompt because it wasn't copying. Okay, let's try that again. So what I'm going to do is I've pasted in a prompt inside here that, if you notice, I'm saying use Airbyte embedded to make an API request from a Stripe connector. This Stripe connector is something that I've already onboarded and connected inside my Airbyte embedded instance. I'm giving it the ID so it knows which connector to use, and I want to fetch all of the invoices for my customer. But then once I've got that information, I want to take it and give it to Claude to analyze the results. I can hit enter, let that run. The MCP service will go and find the valid MCP service here, which is the embedded API make request. It's going to go and fetch that data, return it. Once it's got the information, it's going to present it out and do the analysis. Okay, so it's already grabbed the data. What it's going to do is it's going to start analyzing the data. Just so we don't have to wait too long for time, I'm going to click on one that's already done for us. And what you'll see here is it's gone and, as it made the API request, analyzed the data in the invoice, and then it's come back and said, okay, here are all the top outstanding invoices. So what it's done, like I said, it's made a proxy request on behalf of the customer, and then it's used an LLM to do some type of analysis for you. So we're seeing this pattern show up again and again with inside customer applications, and the Airbyte embedded MCP allows you to do that. The other side of the coin that we were talking about is when we're starting to provide tools and services for developers. And to talk to that, I'm going to hand it over to AJ to talk on that code-aware type services. AJ, it's going to be over to you.
Thanks. And just to do a quick audio check, we had some echo earlier. Does everything sound good now?
Yep, you sound great.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to jump into building data pipelines. And thanks, Quentin, for that great overview of what MCP is. And I'm going to talk specifically for building data pipelines, as I have as my background is as a data engineer. And before we jump into that, I just want to share this quote. The framing of what is MCP and why should I care? It's really, or even what can MCP do? I find it really helpful to think of it as The Verge called it, the USB of AI, or USB-C to be more specific, meaning it's a truly universal interface for AIs to do anything that they need to do, including getting context, saving context, asking questions of the data, kicking off data pipelines, creating data pipelines, and we'll see some of those things right now. All right, so before we get into the PyAirbyte MCP, I just want to say a quick intro to what PyAirbyte is if you've not heard of it. If you're on this call, you probably know what Airbyte is. So we have several offerings. You can deploy anywhere. You can have self-managed. You can use our enterprise offering. You can deploy to cloud. Uh, all of these are fantastic ways to deploy PyAirbyte. And sometimes you want also to be able to control Airbyte with code and or to run it locally in a notebook, Jupyter, Colab, any of those things. So for that, we have PyAirbyte. So a quick intro of what PyAirbyte is and what to expect. It's full control of your Airbyte pipelines with what I call just enough code. So here's approximately 10 lines of code, and this is an entire data pipeline defined here from GitHub. We're getting this specific repository, passing out credentials, getting 3 streams. So the simplest possible representation in code, you can source control, you can deploy this later to cloud, as in this next example. And if you have an account with Airbyte Cloud, you can deploy connections you've tested to the cloud workspace. So I won't dive deep into the code, but just to give a quick interview for those who are code-minded. So now we're going to talk about the MCP and what you can do with the PyAirbyte MCP. So of course you can list and describe connectors. You can also use it to validate if your connector config is correct. You can stream results directly from sources. You can cache data locally. By default, we use DuckDB, which is a high performance database running locally, but you can also connect to other caches, and then you can ask your data anything. As you will see, I hopefully and agree through the demo, the sum is greater than, the total is greater than the sum of the parts here. Because we're not just saying that you as a person can do these actions, we're now empowering your AI assistants to do these actions, which is really, really powerful and compelling, I think. So with that, let's jump into a quick demo. I will be using Claude Desktop for this demo, but you could be using any IDE that supports MCP tools. You could be using your favorite chat agent. Anything will work here. And like I said, this is the USB-C of AI tools. So just to start off, I'm going to paste in a quick prompt. Tell me what MCP tools you have from Airbyte. What your answer to this will depend on which MCP servers you have installed. But I get a helpful list here from the AI. I haven't prompted this. I haven't done anything. All I did was register on my MCP server. It knows it can list connectors. It can find secrets that I've stored, and it can validate config, etc. So with that, let's ask a question of our data. Specifically, I want to continue kind of with the Stripe example data. This is not going to be real data, but I'm going to ask a real question. So I'll ask our LLM, can you sync our Stripe data using PyAirbyte MCP tools, then give me a summary of 2024 sales? So this is a very ambiguous question. I didn't tell it the name of the connector. I didn't give it any instructions on what streams it needs. And we're going to watch it in real time, find the answer to this very ambiguous question, and solve it for us. As I like to say, there's no guarantee that the LLM will not make a mistake, but it's easy to correct, and often the LLM will just fix itself as it gets something wrong. So we'll see if that happens in this demo.
Hey, AJ,
So
while that's loading up,
yeah,
is this a local MCP service? Like we spoke about remote for a
yeah,
while, but
yeah.
I
So
see a lot of the tools being local install as well.
yeah, great question. So yes, this is local. In theory, this could probably be deployed remotely, but for right now, this is just running PyAirbyte on my local machine with no backend. The only thing that's remote is that I'm using GSM, Google Secrets Manager, to store my secrets. So it's going to dynamically retrieve those. Otherwise, everything is running entirely on my machine. So we got the tool use here for keyboard filter, and each one of these little boxes is the LLM using a tool. You can see it found the Stripe connection. This might not seem like very fancy, but the fact that we minimize the contacts that the LLM had to load in is going to make it more efficient overall. It didn't have to scroll through a list of several hundred connectors to find this connector name. It gets the connector info, including what is needed and what its documentation link is in case it needs to do more research.
So this is an
Like I said,
interesting part, and we'll see
Yeah.
this in the next demo as well. I think there's a lot of stuff still to figure out on MCP in terms of best practices. Like, do you use a
Hmm.
vector storage for embeddings or file store, which
Mm.
in my experience has been pretty slow as well? Or do we do something like this and let the LLM kind of figure out the context for you to start with?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've found that providing URL is often sufficient, depending on what your LLM has been provided. This might actually be easier for it than doing a vector search and getting unrelated things that might be Stripe related, but might not actually be what it's looking for. So I find documentation URLs are really handy. Um, and yeah, but it is an ongoing kind of discussion of where vector stores are needed or helpful. And yeah, it's absolutely something we're still exploring, I think, as we prove out best practices here. So this next step is sync source to cache. So, and I'll tease, this is, I think, already done, but I'm still walking through the steps. So we're syncing sources to cache. Here, it found the secret name, which has my config already stored. It knows the connector name. It just defaults to suggested streams, which is intelligent choice. Um, and then it syncs successfully. You can see the tool then tries to list which cached streams are available. It finds companies, products, deals, orders, etc. And now it goes into running queries. So what's very, very powerful about LLMs having access to the raw data is that they can run SQL queries. And even if they make a mistake, it looks like it happened here. They ran a query. It used an incorrect date format for the database backend, and notice that it immediately sees an error and then fixes the syntax without us intervening. I think this is really powerful, and this is very different than me having to directly write the query or adjust or find out, try to pre-program in all the possible combinations of things or make sure that my LLM never gets a wrong syntax. I think this fault tolerant ability to just rewrite the query on its own is extremely powerful. So at the end of this, we see several queries have run. Looks like the final query was an aggregate query. Um, and again, I didn't have to write that query. And I also didn't do any special prompting for it. So like I said, this is dummy data, but here we have an analysis of monthly breakdown of Stripe revenue, customer analysis here, and some key insights. Um, Again, what's powerful here is that I could have asked any question, and even from here, I could continue to ask more questions. And I haven't tried to build a single system that knows the answer to all the questions. I'm just giving the AI the power to query and retrieve data. Um, I want to do one final little query before I hand back over to Quentin. It's just how many Airbyte connectors does it have access to? So we do have a ton of Airbyte connectors supported both by Airbyte and also the open source community. Just by running this quick prompt, I can get a quick summary of which connectors are available in the Airbyte and for this PyAirbyte MCP. We can see this is over 500 connectors, which is a huge number. Highlighted by category, of course, we have all the obvious ones, some lesser known ones as well. Um, and you can also make your own connectors. We're kind of presenting here with PyAirbyte MCP and the rest of the MCP offerings from Airbyte is really a potential to reach any data that you are interested in and plug it directly into your AI.
All right,
Quentin, back to
that
you.
is pretty cool, and that's a really good example of where we're using code level tools and a local environment to help devs be more productive. Continuing that conversation, we wanted to see if we could kind of take it another step further with MCP. So I wanted to introduce you to Fast PyAirbyte. So if you think of the tools and services that AJ was working that will add individual bits and pieces and knowledge to know about your connectors and the health and the data that's available, Fast PyAirbyte provides you the ability to generate an entire data pipeline using PyAirbyte in the background just with a prompt. And very similar to what AJ mentioned, this is a local install using npx. If you're not familiar with npx, it's kind of like a pre-packaged npm that will run install locally just with a single command. Very simple JavaScript, very simple JSON syntax that almost all AI tool and MCP providers support. One thing that we noticed when we were doing remote development for MCP, where you add in a URL, all of the tools like Cursor and Client all support slightly different parts of the spec, but everybody seems set on NPX as a local install, so it makes it very, very easy. And all you need to do is provide a source and a destination and let the code generate for you. So I'm going to show you another example and a demo here. I'm going to open up Cursor. I'm inside Cursor here. You'll see I've already got PyAirbyte MCP enabled. If we have a look at the JSON itself, it's very, very simple. Now, if I come back, all I want to be able to do here is add a simple prompt, create a data pipeline between a source and a destination. Now, this can be any of the sources and destinations that are inside the Airbyte connector registry. So this is a different example from what AJ showed. In this instance, what we're actually using on the back end is OpenAI's file store, and we loaded the connector registry inside the file store, so it knows about all the parameters that's required for each source or destination. So this could be source Salesforce to destination Databricks, whatever you needed. It can be anything out of those 600 connectors. But I'm just going to do a very simple example here. I'm going to go to a data frame. The great thing is I can put it into kind of a Pythonic approach like a data frame. I can go ahead and hit enter here and run it. What it's going to do on the back end is it's going to call the tool, and it's going to go ahead and create all the information, including all of the code, all the environment variables and parameters for you. Now, one thing that we have noticed here, because this is using file search, it's a little slow right now. It's a V1. We're going to go and look and see if vector embeddings will be better, or maybe using that example that AJ spoke about before. So while that's running, I'm just going to show you kind of a pre-cooked example. And I'll let that run on the side here just to make it easier. Once it eventually runs and completes, what gets created is a complete end-to-end Python code example. It knows how to read environment variables, and those environment variables are something like, in this instance, the parameters of the Faker source. There'll be destinations if there are some required, anything that is needed for you. If I jump back here, it knows how to get those environment variables. It goes ahead and creates the source and Faker. You can see it's creating everything on the right-hand side here for us now as well, and I'll show you that code once it's done. Uses PyAirbyte to get the source, adds verification and checking logic for you, eventually goes through and gets all of the destination, and then eventually goes to the destination in our instance, which is a data frame, converts that stream and information to data frame. Now, what you'll notice on the right-hand side here, it's gone ahead and created a sample environment file that I showed you before. It's giving me all the information here, and it's gone ahead and created that code that I just ran through for you. What's even better, goes straight ahead and creates a README with all the information and details for you on how to do it. So if I just go and close this one, then all I need to do, let me just clear this. Assumingly, I've already gone and installed my Python requirements here. Then all I need to do is run Python. And I'll just use my pre-cooked example. We might want to source first. There we go. Make it a little bit better. Now it's actually going to go run that code that was fully generated for me. It's going to go check the connection, pull the data straight from Faker, write it to a data frame. And again, simple example, I'm just using a Faker source and a data frame destination, but it also works on any of the other 600 connectors and environments that we have. So PyAirbyte is a really great way to generate an entire data pipeline as code with a single prompt. Okay, so jumping back, just to finish everything off, we have about 5 minutes left. So to bring it all back in terms of a summary, what we've seen through this approach with Airbyte and MCP is really kind of like two aspects of where we're seeing development. One is building those data pipelines as code using those code level tools and logic. So PyAirbyte is a core part of that, as well as the MCP services that AJ and I demonstrated for you. And they are obviously all code aware, and we provide that information to an LLM to make it easier for developers to build apps. Then on the other side is the work that we're doing inside Airbyte Embedded, and that embedded MCP that provides app developers to leverage customer data and context and share that with LLMs on behalf of the customer. So those proxy services that I showed you earlier with Stripe data to connect and call customer data on their behalf to share that to an LLM so your app can be AI enabled and ready. So we're seeing a lot of interesting things happening here, especially about local remote installs, whether a vector store is better or worse, and looking at ways to optimize what tools are provided and how we can leverage natural language prompts and the LLMs like AJ showed. Can it have some sort of tolerance to fix code errors or SQL errors on behalf of you? So you start to take advantage of that LLM and the AI capabilities. So if you're interested in any of the information here, we'll post this video and live stream on YouTube as well as on our site, as well as doing a docs write-up on a blog post as well. But if you want to try out any of these tools, I highly encourage you go to Airbyte's docs/developer-tools, and you can get your hands on all of these tools right now and play around with yourself. What we're really looking for here is some good feedback from people in our community to make sure we're still creating the right tools and services for everybody. So at that stage, AJ, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up here?
No, this has been a great coverage, and thanks for letting me partake here today.
No problem at all. I think this is a really evolving space, and we're learning a lot of things as we go as well. But we're super excited what's out there with PyAirbyte and Airbyte Embedded. We'd love you all to try. Make sure you join our Slack channel, leave some comments and feedbacks on what you want to see from Airbyte, and we will see you on the next one.